Vincent Van Gogh was a troubled man. He embodied the tortured genius and the starving artist, selling only one painting in his entire life, and living often at the expense of family who believed in his potential as an artist. He was always something of a social outcast, unsociable by temperament, which made him difficult to live with. People were afraid of him because of his wild and unkempt appearance and his intense manner of speaking. The way he looked and acted alienated people, which did not make life easy for him. I doubt many people could remain completely sane in such a continuous state of failure and alienation. Van Gogh certainly could not, and all of it came to a head in 1889 when he arrived at a breaking point, suffering a series of mental breakdowns in which he succumbed to hallucinations and spent days in complete confusion, unaware of where he was or what he was doing. With nowhere else to turn, Van Gogh admitted himself to the psychiatric clinic in Saint Remy, where he was to live for a year, during which time he continued to work and produced some of his most famous works of art, like The Starry Night, as well as lesser-known works of art such as this series of olive orchards. Much like The Starry Night, these paintings are alive. In this piece, for example, the trees are like flames of fire. There's an upward motion that makes you feel as though your feet are being lifted off the ground in a hot air balloon. This one has the low roar of a moving river or a gust of wind tearing through every leaf. And there's motion here as well, but it's different. Here the motion winds and weaves in and out of the trees as if there's a river-like current that makes us think for an instant that we are on the banks of a stream that is flowing away from us to the distant mountains. And in a sense, we are. We are on the banks of the stream of consciousness. Many paintings seem to capture the single frozen frame of a paused film. But when it comes to our real life experience, there is no pause button, no frozen instant. There is not even a single present moment. You can't pinpoint a single monadic point in time that is, quote, the present. The present is a transmomentary series, a plural of moments. It is something that is happening. It is ongoing. We live and think and feel in a gray area somewhere between remembering what has just happened to us and expectation, imagining before our eyes what our futures hold in the next split second. And Van Gogh painted this world, not the world of a single frame, paused in motion, but several frames at once. He paints the world as it exists in phenomenal experience. There is no clear line of demarcation between past, present, and future, nor is there a clear, convenient divide between perception and emotion, seeing and feeling. To see is to feel, and to feel is to see differently. Van Gogh wrote in a letter that painters understand nature and art and teach us to see. And that's what he is doing in these paintings. His olive orchards are not showing us what is there, but teaching us how to see what is there. My favorite of the series is this one. Maybe because it's the only one I've seen in person. In a sense, you've never really seen a painting until you've seen it in person. Only when you're in front of a painting do you really feel its surprising force. You don't expect a painted image to play on you so deterministically, and yet it does. When I saw this painting, I felt sucked in. Like the other paintings, the ground is a river of motion here as well, but it's not upward or away. It's swirling and eddying, sweeping intensely up the right. The motion of Van Gogh's brushstrokes draws you forcefully into the painting. It is art with a tidal gravitational pull. In a virtual reality headset, you can feel you are moving just by the images that it shows you, and your brain interprets the image as actual motion. You can feel it in your body, and similarly, you can feel this painting in your body. This kind of art is the original virtual reality, inviting you to live inside its world. And what exactly is that world? Before I knew anything about this painting, I thought of it as being deeply religious. There is something of the Garden of Gethsemane in it, the garden on the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Suffering, where drops of blood are sweated out in prayer, feeding the roots of the olive trees, the symbols of peace, prosperity, feasting, and anointing. When Jesus died hanging from the crossed boards, the sky, we are told, grew dark, and the earth quaked. When he prayed among the olive trees of Gethsemane, one would think that the world and the way of things warped not unlike this. In actual fact, Van Gogh was engaged in discussions of the Gethsemane theme with fellow painter Paul Gauguin when he painted these olive orchards. The latter had painted an explicit scene of Christ in the garden in 1889, and Van Gogh responded with his own olive orchards that same year. But Christ is nowhere to be found here in these paintings. Van Gogh explained that in his mind, there was no need for a Christ figure. One can express anguish without making reference to the actual Gethsemane, and there is no need to portray figures from the Sermon on the Mount in order to express a gentle and comforting feeling. I shall not paint a Christ in the Garden of Olives, but shall paint the olive harvest as one might see it today, and by giving the human figure its proper place in it, one might perhaps be reminded of it. Dare we say that Van Gogh's reality is perichoretic, at least in his categories and word symbols, whatever his metaphysics may have been? Pericheruo, to dance around. Pericheo, to pour over and around. Everything indwells everything else. Everything spills into everything else. If an olive orchard is in Gethsemane, then a Gethsemane is in every olive orchard. And the Spirit of Christ walks there in the cool of the evening, though he walks incognito. The National Gallery of Art introduced Van Gogh's olive orchards this way. In the olive trees, in the expressive power of their ancient and gnarled forms, Van Gogh found a manifestation of the spiritual force he believed resided in all of nature. His brush strokes make the soil and even the sky seem alive with the same rustling motion as the leaves, stirred to a shimmer by the Mediterranean wind. These strong individual dashes do not seem painted so much as drawn onto the canvas with a heavily loaded brush. The energy in their continuous rhythm communicates to us in an almost physical way the living force that Van Gogh found within the trees themselves, the very spiritual force that he believed had shaped them. Van Gogh's belief on things is often hard to pin down. Over the course of his life, he played many roles. He played the part of the fervent religious devotee and the disillusioned skeptic. But it's hard to deny that there is a spiritual quality flowing through this painting. The murmuring song of the Chinese Tao, which flows like a river, but is unnamed and unnameable. The last great mystery beneath all things. The murmur of an olive grove, Vincent once wrote to his brother Theo, has something very intimate, immensely old about it. If we couldn't hear it before, we hear it now with the help of Van Gogh's brush.